In this video, I'm going to show you how to create croquis using Adobe Illustrator. We're going to be using three different options in order to create these croquis that we can use to dress our garments on. So the first thing that we need to do is open up Adobe Illustrator. We're going to go to More Presets, and then we're going to be creating a file that uses tabloid size with landscape dimensions. And I need to make sure that I'm working within inches. So at the top screen, I'm going to move over to Print, and then I'm going to select Tabloid. I need to make sure that I turn points into inches, and also that my landscape orientation is selected. We're going to save this as your last name underscore Croquis and press create. While that's getting started, I also need to head over to a web browser in order to find three different image files. So the first image that I'm going to be looking for is just a straight-on croquis. This should be a croquis where I can see the full front of the body. So I typed in croquis JPEG to make sure that I'm getting JPEGs instead of WebP files. And then you take the file that you like, I'm going to choose this one, and you drag and drop it onto your desktop. Next, I'm going to find a croquis where I see some sort of pose, so an asymmetrical pose. And then you can grab that image, drag and drop it onto your desktop. And then for the final image, you're going to search a celebrity or musician or someone that you really maybe like their style or they've got an interesting pose. And you're going to take that image and drag and drop it onto your desktop. I'm going to head back over to Illustrator. Now I've got my screen here. And the first thing that I want to do is press Command or Control R in order to get my rulers. So that way I can drag in guidelines. And then I'm going to go over to my layers palette and I'm going to create 3 layers. So I want a layer for each of my croquis to make sure that I'm staying nice and organized. So layer 1, I'm going to double click on the text and say, this is croquis 1. And then for layer 2, I'm going to say croquis 2. And layer 3 is going to be croquis 3. So I'm going to drag in this first image. And right now I can see that that image is a little smaller than I would like. So I'm going to press Shift and grab one of the anchor points in order to make it so that one of these croquis that I'm going to be using is about the height of my page. And then I'm going to need my properties layer. And I'm going to come down to quick actions here and say embed. After I've got the embed all set, I'm going to crop the image by clicking this button here that says crop image. I'm going to drag the bounding box so that I've got my image, and then I'm going to press enter. So now this image is really pixelated, and that is okay because I just need to have the outline. But if it's too pixelated to see, you might want to choose a different one. Next, I'm going to drag my guideline and I'm going to get to the center of my croquis. And if it's not quite center, I can click on the box that I have here and move the arrow over button until it's centered with that image. Maybe just a little bit more. I'm going to marquee select using my selection tool, key command V, and press Control or Command 2 in order to lock both of those layers. So now I'm going to use the pen tool and I'm going to start to trace around my croquis. If I press Command plus sign, I can zoom in a bit. And I'm going to also want to make sure that I have no fill and that my stroke is a color that I can see. I'm going to use black. Now you have a few different options when you're doing this. One option that you have is you can click and hold in order to get the curvature that you want and the shape that you want with your image. Or I can create a whole bunch of sharp lines and then use Shift C in order to come back in later and add curvature to the croquis. I'm going to go ahead and press P, and I'm going to use the click and hold method in order to get my shape. Now you'll see as I'm coming down here, this is a little bit lower than I want the face to be. So if I click on this anchor point, then I can get a little bit closer to the face here to have a bit more accuracy. So it does not need to be perfect. And if you're zoomed in, know that you can press the space bar in order to move your pen tool. And then if you make a mistake, you can click the A key command for direct select and then press delete or backspace. And then if I need to come back in and fix this anchor, I can just click right back on there and begin where I left off. Now, if you have a croquis and it has multiple fingers that you're trying to get to, go ahead and just start out with the basic outline shape. We don't want to mess with extra limbs or extra fingers in this moment. We can come back in and fix that later. And if you're like, wow, that hand looks really big, it's okay. You can go back in and fix it again soon. Pressing spacebar to move down. Not going to worry about any of the details internally in the croquis. And then if I have a point that is square and I want it to be rounded, I can fix that in a couple of different ways after I get my basic shapes. If you don't like something, Command Z to undo it. All right. So now that I have my basic shapes, I can come in and start to fix things. And I think it's a lot easier to come in and fix things if I'm not seeing my image. So I'm going to go to my layers menu. I am going to click on the eyeball, and then I'm going to start to work with my croquis. So the first thing that I'm noticing is that I'm not super happy with these fingers. So I'm going to press the key command A, and I'm also going to use Control plus sign in order to zoom in. And I'm going to fix this thumb a little bit. I can do this by moving the Bezier curves. I can also make a point that's square rounded using this bullseye. Or if I have a point that's square and I want it to be rounded, I can click on it, go to properties, and convert anything from a corner point to a curved point. I can also use Shift C in order to add an anchor point that will automatically get me some more curvature. Here I'm seeing that that's looking a little pointy, so I'm going to round that out. That looks better. Here I think that we need to bring this bottom part out a bit. And you can see that you can just start to fuss with things so that they're looking a little bit more natural, more of the shape that you're going for. Okay, got a little bit of an animal looking foot here, so I'm gonna fix that up just a little. This comes out too far, so I'm gonna bring it in. That's looking better. I want to round that out a little bit more. And then nobody really has this naturally, and so we're gonna curve that out. All right, Command minus sign in order to zoom out, and I'm liking the way that this shape is looking. So I'm going to marquee select the entire piece using the key command V selection tool. And then I'm going to go through my reflection mode. So Command C to copy, Command F to paste in front, O to reflect, click on the center line. I'm going to click and hold with my left mouse, press Shift, move my mouse over, and now I've got a full croquis. The last thing that I need to do for this croquis is join it. So I am going to select the entire croquis and then press Command J 1 or 2 times. If you see this come up, then you've already done it and it's all set. And what that means is that this is no longer 2 pieces, it's 1 piece. Everything's connected at the crotch point and at the head. And we've got our first croquis. Once that's done, you're going to click on your layers palette and we're going to go ahead and unlock your guide and your sketch. And then I'm going to delete both of those. That one is done. All right, now we're going to move on to the second croquis. For the second croquis, I'm going to drag and drop the image of the model that I have that is stylized. I'm going to select Shift and grab one of the corners of the image. And then once it's about the height of my screen, I can go to Properties. I'll need to scroll down in order to select Embed. And then I'm going to crop the image. And I'm going to snag this image. And it's okay if you have extra parts of the other images that you don't want in there. That is a-okay. And then I'm going to press Enter in order to crop it. Now, I have this image in the wrong layer, so there's a couple different ways that I can move it. The first thing that I can do is I can click this caret, and then I can grab the image and drag it into the correct croquis. Alternatively, I can select the image, say Control Copy, Control C to copy, Command X to cut, and Command F to paste in front so that it pastes exactly where I had it last. And now I've got the croquis in the correct position. I'm just going to hide that other model so that it's out of the way. I'm going to zoom in. Now I don't need a guideline for this because I am not doing anything symmetrical, but I do want to lock this. So I'm going to click on the image and press Command 2 in order to lock it. And then I'm going to use my pen tool to start drawing. It's already switched my stroke and my fill, so I'm going to swap those. And because this is a pretty strong black line, I'm going to double click on my stroke and I'm going to make it a different color. I'll go ahead and do red. And that way I can really see what I'm doing. So I want to start out by making a complete path. So I'm just going to think about the outline of this image. Starting with the head, I am going to move around the outside edge of the croquis. And what I'm doing here is if I click off a little further than I want and I want to move that point in, I can press the space bar and that will move my point into the space where I am desiring it to be. And again, I can click on the square again if I want to restart or start another vector path right where I left off and it's in a different spot. And I'm just going to go around and trace the entirety of this croquis. Now we're going to be able to come back in and get some of the details that we're leaving out now. But if the purpose of this is just to dress something, then you might not necessarily need all of those details that are internal. And you'll start to get faster and more comfortable with this as you go. Just like anything, it's a little clunky when you start, but with practice, it starts to become more intuitive, more natural, faster, easier. If I don't like something that I've done, I can always say Control or Command Z. If you're working on a Mac, it'll be Control. If you're working, or excuse me, Command. And if you're working on a PC, it'll be Control. So when I misspeak and I say the wrong command, it's because typically when we're in the classroom, we're working with Macs in this class with Apple products. And right now I'm at my PC. And so when I look down, I see the control key. Okay, so I've got that outside one all complete. I can see that here, it's looking good. And now I'm gonna come in and I'm just gonna fill in the neck and the face. So I'm gonna start on this side. And again, I'm just kind of outlining what I see. Does not need to be perfect. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna end that one there. I'm gonna press A in order to end that path. And then I'm gonna press P and start over here. Okay. And I actually want to come back and redo what I did on this side. I just want to end this one here. So I'm going to press the minus sign and delete that point, and then press my P tool, come back to this anchor point and connect that so that those are my paths. Now I'm going to hide the croquis to see what I've got here. And my stroke's looking a little thin. So right now I see it's at a 0 point weight. So I'm going to change that to 1. Let's try that again. Right now it's in preview mode for some reason. All right, so I was unsuccessful in getting out of outline mode, which usually you just use the key command, Command Y or Control Y. And for some reason, I just couldn't get it to work. And so I'm using an older file, so that's why this middle croquis looks different. And I'm going to continue to look to find that, but I want to make sure that you know how to do this next step. So the last thing that we're going to do is we are going to be pulling in that image. So I'm going to drag and drop my image of my musician. I've got Sierra Farrell here, just adore. And what I'm going to do here, instead of embedding this right away, is I am going to go to Properties. I'm going to scroll down, and then I'm going to click where it says Edit in Photoshop. This should automatically open up your image into Photoshop, and I'm going to show you how you can remove the background in Photoshop, and then you can use a feature called Image Trace in order to trace around your person. So now I am in Photoshop, and I've got my color here. And often it will have a pop-up that just comes up right away. And if I click on this button that says Remove Background, it's going to just take a moment, and then it's going to basically cut out that background. And let's try a quick export as PNG. Let's give that a try. Save it to my desktop. Okay, there it is. Now I'm going to get out of Photoshop. So now in Illustrator, I am going to drag and drop that image. And if I want to be really efficient, I can click on my third layer so that when I pull it in, it's copying into my third layer. And you can see that it still has this binding box, but it doesn't have the background anymore, which is excellent. I'm going to go to Properties, scroll down to Embed. I'm going to crop the image so that that background part is gone. Press Enter once I like where it's at. And then if I scroll down to Image Trace, there are all of these options that you can do, but also if you go to Object, scroll down, to image trace and then say make and expand. If you make and expand, then you can adjust the pixel points. And from there, if I press A, I can often delete the background. And then I have a vector line drawing of this person. Often there's going to be separate sections. So sometimes we want all of those things, sometimes we don't. But this is all connected, and this is just to show you how you can use this feature. You can also see some of the little bits that got left behind here as well. If I have key command A on, then I'll be able to move that. Then I'm going to go back to V. All right, the last thing that you need to do for this assignment, let's delete these over here, is I want to align them. So I'm going to come to my first image and I'm going to say Command G in order to group it. And now that's all connected. I'm going to marquee select my second image, Command G, my third image, Command G. So all of my layers are totally separate now. So now I'm going to kind of mess this up so you can really see the power of this align tool. But I need to make sure that I've got selection tool on. And I've messed this all up. If I marquee select all of my images and go to properties, the align table is also in there, window. You can also go to window align in order to find this. And then again, with all of them selected, if I click on the three dots below align, I'll get more options. And it's not working, so I'm just going to grab this. Okay. And then I want to go to distribute objects. I'm going to start by distributing them so that they're centered. And then I'm going to distribute them so that they are vertical. There we go. So I can vertically align all of them from the bottom. And then I can also do this and really mess it up. Command Z, but you can play with these spacing options in order to make it so that they're all on the same solid ground, so that they are all centered. So for example, if I did this, if I distribute horizontal, it's going to make it so that everything's centered. Finally, if you haven't done so already, make sure that you've saved. I'm going to save it to the cloud, and then I'm going to save as and save on my computer. And then I'm going to save that file to my desktop. And then I want to say okay. And then you're going to drag and drop that file into your file folder on your OneDrive and your university email. And the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to export. I'm going to export as. And I'm going to export it as a JPEG. Say export. And then I want to change my resolution to 300 if it's not there already. You can also go to a higher quality if you would like. It's going to make it a larger small file, but it will look nicer. And then you can go into Canvas and post this assignment to Canvas.